The Honourable Hekia Parata.
Mr Speaker, tēnā koe, Mr Speaker, tēnā tātou huri noi tō tātou whare. Kia ora. Look, I rise with absolute excitement and pride, indeed with energy and resources, to talk about the plan and ambition that this national-led government has for Aotearoa New Zealand, while at the same time observing with despair the margins that the opposition has chosen to occupy. The issues and items which they seem to think are of interest to New Zealanders completely miss this point. As the previous speakers on this side of the House have outlined, New Zealanders are concerned about what the economy is doing, how they are affected by it. They're concerned about education for their children. They're concerned about health for themselves, for their families, for their friends, for their communities. They are concerned about law and order and about the safety of their homes, their streets, their workplaces and their neighbourhoods. And what is this government's response to that? It has responded in absolutely every area of concern and interest to New Zealanders. It has responded by, despite having been dealt the most difficult hand that perhaps any government in a generation has been dealt, it has nevertheless focused on the systemic and the structural, because it understands that New Zealanders want long-term sustainability. They want to see that they are going to have strength in their hip pockets, as my colleague, the Honourable Maurice Williamson, has described it so matter-of-factly. They want to know that they have a government that's focused on the priorities, on what is important to them. And notwithstanding all of those more general national application issues and priorities, this government has also focused on Christchurch, on how we support that wonderful city and that very challenged community to rebuild and recover. Because it's not only important to Christchurch, it's important to New Zealand. It is the second biggest economic hub for our country, and that is why this government has spared no level of energy and commitment and focus to work with the people of Christchurch and of Canterbury to help rebuild and recover that centre of activity for themselves and for us. In the tax area, we have, of course, as you know, as the opposition knows, as this House knows, taken steps to re-engineer the whole tax platform to get the kinds of behaviours that, again, we know are sustainable over time. We have tilted the tax to ensure that we move away from the behaviour encouraged by the opposition, which was to consume, borrow, spend, and not even hope, because under that opposition it was hopeless. And instead what we have done on this side of the House is recognise that New Zealanders are capable of making decisions for themselves. And instead of the government interfering and intervening in their lives, as is characteristic of that government, we have said to 75%, almost 75% of New Zealanders, the tax rate is 17.5%, because you, the general public, Mr Speaker, or well, at least the 72% who are on that 17.5% tax rate now, can make their own decisions about how they spend that 83% or near to 83%. We have encouraged investment and savings because we also understand that it's not the government that creates wealth, it's businesses that create wealth. It's not the government that should be involved in make-work schemes for employment, it's businesses that should be employing people. We understand that we need to support businesses to take risks on young people, on Māori, on Pacific Island people, on all kinds of people in New Zealand, to give them the opportunity to secure employment and make decisions for their families. We understand that health is important, and we've heard the Minister of the Health in the House today speaking about the kinds of investments that this government has made, notwithstanding the difficult economic context in which we are operating. We've focused on education because, unlike that opposition, we are not prepared to consign 1 in 5 students to some sort of scrap heap of dependence on the state. We want New Zealanders to be resilient. self-determining. We don't want them reliant on Uncle Trevor or Auntie Helen or Uncle Parekura for that matter. We want them reliant on themselves. We want the government out of the lives of New Zealanders. We want to support their independence. And we've nevertheless done very practical things. Mr Speaker, we have put 300 more police on the streets. We have done so much.
The Honourable Pete